Hello, I'm Pat Lee. I'm a volunteer, and welcome to the Jenny Lynn Foundation Music Academy webinar. This is our 8th show. We have many dedicated volunteers who have brought together this music webinar to support all of our upcoming musicians. Greg Conway, our tech person tonight and moderator during our Music Academy, is currently the Director of Instrumental Music at Hopkins Junior High in Fremont. He studied at Cal State University in Hayward and has won numerous awards in music education throughout his career in teaching. He is also one of the finalists for the 2020 NBC Sports Bay Area All-Star Teacher Award. He is also our Jenny Lynn Foundation band director for the past 14 years. Miss Diana Ryan has been our Jenny Lynn Foundation Summer Music Program Chorus Director for 16 years. She studied at California State University at Hayward in psychology and vocal music performance and directed chorus and private lessons since 1988. She has been most active as a donor introducing handmade jewelry, which are made by our student volunteers and summer music participants. She will be introducing tomorrow night's webinar also. Our moderator tonight is Mr. Cary Nasatir, the director of the Nasatir School of Percussion in Castro Valley. He studied percussion in Chicago with Roy C. Knapp, Casper Bohoizen, and just to name a few. His credits include Music to Your Ears Quartet, Boys of the Bog, Hayward Municipal Park Band, and also music director for the mighty Tones of Temple Isaiah, as well as a conductor for string orchestra and band for Fremont Schools. He is also our Jenny Lynn Foundation director for orchestra for the past 20 years. We thank all our adult and student volunteers for their dedicated work, especially now during these most extreme of times. Please visit our website, www.jennylynn.foundation, to see who we are and what we have provided because of your support and donations. And now I'd like to introduce our student coordinators who've been working all year, and they have been led by our Miss Lynn Foykush, who is their mentor for the last 25 years as well. She is our backbone of our program. So I'd like to introduce Caitlin, Katie, and Krithika, our SCs.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 8th webinar in our summer series. My name is Krithika, and I have been participating in the Jenny Lynn Foundation Summer Music Program for 4 years, and this is my first year as a student coordinator. I have been playing the violin and alto saxophone for 5 years and singing for 7 years.
Hi, my name is Caitlin, and this is my 4th year as part of the Jenny Lynn Foundation, and my first year as a student coordinator. I've been playing viola for 6 years and piano for 10.
Hey, my name is Katie, and this is my 5th year as part of the Jenny Lynn Foundation and my 2nd year as a student coordinator. I've been playing viola for 7 years.
We hope you enjoyed the last webinar with Don Richardson and John Mader. Again, we would like to start off with a couple of reminders and announcements.
If you haven't already, please join our closed Facebook group. Just search for Jenny Lynn Music Program on Facebook and make a request to join. You will have to answer a few entry questions, and that's just so that we can ensure child safety and verify that you are indeed a registered participant of our program.
In addition, please join I Remind. If you text at JLF 202 to the number 810-810, you will receive text messages directly to your cell phone with reminders about upcoming webinars, spirit events, various competitions, and prizes. It's a great way to stay up to date and informed about all our activities for this program, especially if you don't have any social media accounts to follow us on, but be aware that texting charges may apply.
Through Remind, we also send out daily safety tips. Today, we have a 2-tip Tuesday, so we have 2 tips to share about walking safety. The first one is, when walking, keep alert at all times and don't be distracted by electronic devices that take your eyes and ears off the road.
And our second tip is to be visible at all times. Wear bright clothing during the day and wear reflective materials or use a flashlight at night. We hope you enjoyed yesterday's Kahoot. Tonight, we will be hosting a Kahoot based on our guest speaker, Richard Meyer, where you can win more gift card prizes.
In the meantime, you can win more gift card prizes by participating in our spirit dress competition. This week's theme is a Disney dress up, so show your spirit and send a picture to either our Instagram account at Jenny Lynn Foundation or email us at jennylynnphotos@gmail.com by Friday at midnight. We will have 4 winners winning up to $20 Amazon gift card, and these winners will be announced next Monday. For more information on our dress up competition, check out our Instagram page.
Check out our JLF fundraiser, JLF Wear fundraiser at tinyurl.com/JLFshirt2020 to purchase a t-shirt or a hoodie with our 2020 Better Together logo. And if you missed any of these announcements, don't worry, they will be in our weekly newsletter sent to the email you provided in the registration. Also, if you miss any of these webinars, we will be posting recordings on our website, jennylynnfoundation.org.
Thank you again for tuning in. We hope you learn a lot from our featured guest speaker tonight.
Hi, that was great. That was a lot of fun. Thank you again. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Cary Nasatir, who is our moderator tonight, and he will introduce our guest, Mr. Richard Meyer.
Thank you, Pat. Welcome everybody to the Jenny Lynn Foundation webinar series. I'm Cary Nasatir. My guest tonight is composer Richard Meyer, and you will be able to ask Richard questions by writing them into the Q&A on your screens. Please keep them short and to the point. I don't see Richard yet, but there he is. Hello, how are you?
Hi. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really happy because I got every Kahoot question correct.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Got to pay close attention. Everything's good. Nice to see you again. And family okay? Grandkids, everybody okay?
Everyone's good. Thanks for asking. I hope you're good too.
We're good and breathing. I just want to say Richard Meyer is an orchestral composer with over 200 compositions and arrangements in print. For 16 years, he's been the string editor for Alfred Publishing and is the co-author of the successful String Explorer series and Sight Read It for strings. Richard recently retired from a 35-year career in music education in Southern California. To get right in it, Richard, you wrote a poignant piece, string piece, last year for the Jenny Lynn Orchestra. We debuted it last year, as you know, at last year's concert. From Darkness, Joyful Sounds Are Born. It was written, of course, for Jenny, and in your dedication, you stated that it was all about facing and overcoming the hardships we all encountered during our lifetime. Can you discuss that piece a little bit and what your process was and how it all came together for you in terms of putting this piece of music together?
Sure. I think you and Greg Conway first came to me and talked about having some sort of piece for it's the 25th anniversary, I think. And I said, certainly, because it's such a great cause. I didn't know a lot about the background and researched about it. Found out that Jenny's parents live 1 mile from me down here in Sierra Madre, California, coincidence. So that was the first step in starting to compose the piece, was meeting with them. And so my wife and I met with them at Starbucks, and we talked about Jenny and what type of piece it should be. And they were open to really anything at that point. And I kicked around a lot of ideas. They brought me actually some of Jenny's classwork. There was some things she had written as a student, a poem she had written, an autobiography she wrote in 7th grade, I believe. I read through all that, just looking for something to hold on to that I could use to get the piece going. At first, I was going to use one of the poems she wrote and try to put it sort of to music, sort of a tone poem. But I kept thinking that's really not personal enough. And I had some stories that her mother had told me about her. And the ones that kept coming back to me were the ones about her wanting to include everybody in everything. She was the one who was, if they were around the table having a good time and there was somebody who was quiet, she pulled them into the conversation. She was always looking after everybody. And so that really hit me as being a good starting point. So I knew I wanted a piece that would involve everybody in the auditorium. Now that's easier said than done. So I thought, how am I going to do this? So I started thinking about a piece that the audience would be cued to sing or to stomp or to clap or whatever and become part of the piece, because that's sort of the way Jenny was, involving everybody around her in conversations and play and fun. I talked to the parents about this. They were kind of wondering, how's this going to work? I remember her father saying, how is the audience going to start singing? What if they don't start singing? I thought, they will. We'll find a way to get that done. So he then actually wrote me an email saying the outline of the piece he wanted, and that would be the best way to honor Jenny. He wanted it to start with sort of a nice, free-flowing, happy moment that represented Jenny. And then I remember him saying, I want a big thud, a big, huge crash, or a minor chord where everything changes. So that happens in the piece. There's a spot in the piece that's about 12, 16 measures of just sorrowful music. And that's actually the original theme, which I inverted upside down and put into minor key. And then after that, there was sort of a reconciliation of an acceptance of these horrible things that had happened, and then bringing in a celebratory sort of feeling to the piece after that. And from that point on in the piece, it becomes a big party where the audience is clapping and the audience is stomping and the orchestra is doing the same. You did the conducting and did a great job cueing the audience. So the orchestra would do something, actually do a little singing, and then you would turn around to the audience and they would come in and echo what they had just heard. So that worked very, very well. The whole piece ended with a very reflective sort of a hymn to Jenny. It ended on a very low key, tranquil moment. I could not be at the concert. I was winding up at a music camp. And I heard the concert went beautifully, and I wish I had been there to see
no, it was absolutely beautiful. And everybody was stomping and all of that. And it was great. They showed the video at the memorial a few weeks back, for Jenny's memorial. And it just brought back a lot of feelings and emotion, a very emotional piece. How is it different writing a piece that you're commissioned for, as opposed to one that you would write on spec in terms of, I'm going to write a piece of music and sell it, or I have an idea. How does your process change, or when you're doing something like that?
Well, first of all, a commission is great for me because it's kind of like homework. If any students are listening, it gives me a deadline that I have to have the piece done by a certain time. So I've never missed a deadline for a commission, but that's one thing that I have to, I'm glad to take commissions for that reason, because it gets me going and writing and meeting a deadline. The commission can be very specific, or it can be something very open. Some teachers just say, write me whatever you want. Those are the hardest things to write. Things that are more specific are easy for me. One group gave me the actual title of the piece, and I know some of the students have played this piece. It's called The Emerald Falcon. They were the Falcons. They're the high school mascot. Their color was green. He wanted the piece called The Emerald Falcon. So I said, okay. And then I thought, well, it sounds kind of like a superhero to me. And that became sort of a end credit sort of an end credit type music to a movie. It's sort of a Batman sound to it. So that kind of wrote itself once I got steering down that path. Other commissions, sometimes they're for a celebration. It could be a 100-year anniversary. I just wrote a piece for Tucson High School, and it's their 100th anniversary, but that teacher said, do whatever you want. She gave me a few ideas. So I ended up calling the piece Century One Tucsonic. It's a very futuristic, forward-looking piece, and they really dug the way that came out. I've written pieces in memorial for some teachers, and I asked for information about the teacher or whoever I'm writing the piece for. So I try to get very specific about details that way. Did they have a favorite type of music, a favorite song? So the commission process varies depending who's asking.
And when Alfred says, I don't know if Alfred actually says it, but Alfred says we want a grade 3 string piece. Difference of putting that together as opposed to a commission.
Oh, so something that's not commissioned?
Correct.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of ways I'm inspired, and I thought that might come up as a question. It could be a title that I have that will just trigger a piece. Some of the things I've written, that titles came first. I wrote a piece called Helium. I wrote a piece called Of Glorious Plumage. That was actually a little phrase I read in a magazine article, and I wrote that down with the intent of writing a piece someday with that title. Zoom was another one. It's just not because of this platform, but because of zooming. It's another piece that was just a cool title. So sometimes the title comes first. Sometimes Alfred, by the way, is the publisher. You said Alfred. I don't know if everybody knows that. It sounded like some guy who's asking you to write music. So Alfred. Yeah, Alfred.
Uncle Al Magnus, actually.
That's right.
Right.
Alfred Publishing. Sometimes they'll have a need. They'll say, "Well, will you do a holiday tune this year?" Or we'd like you to do a feature tune for the viola section, or whatever. So sometimes they're specific, but pretty often I can just write whatever I like that way. And you mentioned the grade level. Writing a grade 1 piece for almost beginning players, or a grade 3 or 4 for high school players is quite different, and the approach is quite different because you got parameters that keep you in those grade 1 pieces that students can't play as many rhythms or read as many notes. And those are often the most difficult pieces to make interesting and to write, are the ones for the younger groups, the grade 1 as we call them.
In your capacity as both writer and an editor at a publishing company. Actually, I had it in this. I have it at Publishing Giant. So there you go. What's the process like for other people to get an orchestral piece published? In other words, not you, but a new writer. How does that happen? I know you have acquisitions people and
right.
publishers.
Right. Some companies aren't taking things from outside, unsolicited works, as they would say. I know Alfred Publishing is. When I was a string editor, I'm no longer the string editor. I did that for 16 years, and I saw all types of music. We would take music from anybody. We wouldn't accept it and publish it, but we would listen to it. Yeah. And so if you're interested in getting a piece listened to by an editor, that would mean something as simple as having the piece written, send them a finale or a Sibelius file, sound file of the piece and the score, and then a quick query letter or something that tells something about the piece, just sort of a blurb, as we call it. And when I was the string editor, I always like to get maybe 2 or 3 pieces max from somebody. If you're interested in sending something in, do not send 9 pieces in. Because it's just overwhelming, and just send your 2 best ones, maybe 2 different grade levels, 2 different styles. And also in the letter you send along, don't say how great a piece it is and that everybody in your school district loved playing it and that it's going to sell 1 million copies. Just let the music speak for itself. And the best things I got as an editor were from teachers, and they had their own group they could write for. Mark Williams, Bob Phillips, Carrie Langroussel, Doug Spada. They're all teachers, and they all tried things out on their students. If I got pieces from a guy who graduated from Juilliard with a composition degree, it really wasn't often suited for students.
Right.
So the teachers were really the best composers for educational music that I found.
When you and I first met, I knew your music, of course, but I didn't know anything about your background. And we were standing on the campus of Oak Avenue Intermediate, which was where you were teaching, and in Temple City. And it hit me that there was so much of Merle Isaac and Vernon Leidig, and I know you remember me saying this, not necessarily in your music, but in your career path in terms of teaching and composing and writing for a need. And you connected the dots for me about Leidig and Isaac. Can you connect those dots for our audience, what your connection is to them?
Okay, well, Merle Isaac, I don't have any personal connection. I grew up playing his music all the time, and he was the arranger for every student group and was just sort of the Beethoven of musical education.
Yeah.
Vernon Leidig was actually my teacher at California State University. He was my pedagogue. He's the one who did the method classes, taught us how to be teachers, had a wonderful music education program there. And I never took any composition lessons at all. I just learned everything on my own from looking at scores or stealing from other composers. And Vernon was just such a great teacher for all of us. And he sent, when I became the string editor for Alfred Publishing, he would send me pieces. And it was always kind of funny because it was always very clean and flawlessly written. All the bowings and markings were great. But if I found one little mistake, I made sure I pointed it out to my whole teacher. And he was always a little bit embarrassed that I could find that. But his stuff everyone else would be sending things in on computer and Finale. He sent things on huge, big manuscript paper, done in pencil, as clean as could be. Real easy to read, very seldom an error, but it was very old school and kind of refreshing that way. So I also remember Vernon telling me one thing. He did a lot of arranging, and he arranged all the symphonies and all the different overtures. Didn't get a lot published that was original music. So I remember him telling me, Richard, stick with arrangements. Don't write anything original. There's no money in that. And so I sort of forgot that and just started writing original things, and hopefully, luckily I should say, they hit and people started buying them.
But he was connected to Merle Isaac, though, wasn't he? I mean, was it? I thought they had a connection.
I can't speak to that. I don't want to say anything that's not true. So
yeah, what's interesting from Isaac's career is that he was from Chicago, and he taught at a high school, Marshall High School, and you're right. I mean, he was doing arrangements of the classics, of the masters, because there weren't any. And this is in the 20s and 30s. And so he started an industry, because there was a lot of that for band, but there wasn't much in the way of strings. And
right.
He always had a string program. So he started writing these arrangements. And then, I was in school not only playing his stuff, but also Vernon's stuff, because Vernon was, when I was in high school, of course, we barely had paper, and we had rocks with the notes hammered into it. But it was similar. I mean, in terms of writing these things that were better ranges for kids in a certain age group, and he, those folks gave us Beethoven and Mozart, and in a palatable, not easy necessarily, but a doable way of success, being successful.
Right.
I have a question from somebody in our audience. Who are your biggest influences in terms of your compositional style?
Good question. I love any folk music. Vaughan Williams a lot. I like Impressionist harmonies, Debussy, Ravel. I respect very much the way Brahms can take anything and do formally things with it that I have tried to imitate, not, but so Brahms, Debussy, Ravel, Ralph Vaughan Williams. I love movie music as well. So cinematic music, and Thomas Newman is one of my favorite composers just because of the harmonies he uses, and I've borrowed a few progressions from him over the years, and so a lot of movie music as well.
What do you think that's interesting about your music is that it has, you're in Southern California and it kind of has that Hollywood, a lot of your music, not all of it, has that Hollywood, have that movie feel to it. And in fact, I've heard you in clinic talk about here's the love thing, and this is the love thing of the piece, and you know you've had there's is movie music the music these days in terms of, I mean, it's very classical. The early writers were all classically trained. The later writers, with John Williams and Hans Zimmer and Horner and Newman. I mean, although Newman has more of a folk and a pop feel to him, do you think that is the new classical music of our day right now in terms of what people are listening to, other than pop?
It's the most listenable music now. It's tonal. The melodies are hummable. It's got an immediate appeal. I think for a lot of what we call classical music, modern classical music, it takes a lot to listen to it. It takes a commitment. You have to rehear things. It's not immediately appealing to a lot of people. So listening to the new things in the concert hall are not quite, don't have that immediate appeal that movie music does. So I think we're existing with both of them. I respect a lot of what modern composers are doing in the concert hall. It's not my cup of tea, as we may say, but I think I just like the way movie music speaks to me, and it's so easy to listen to and immediately recognizable and just fun to listen to. When I write with imagery in mind. I write very cinematically. So there's almost always some sort of a picture or a situation in mind when I'm writing something. There's two types of music. There's absolute music, which is music with no sort of story. For instance, Beethoven's Fourth Symphony. There's no story to it. It's just raw music with emotion. Beethoven had nothing in mind for the listener to imagine when he wrote it. That's called absolute music. The other is program music or tone painting, or music with some sort of a picture that the audience is supposed to have in their mind and follow along as they listen to it. I'm much more that type of a composer who works best if I have some sort of a plan to follow in the way of imagery or situational things going on.
Did you always want to compose?
No, not when I was like 4 years old and all of that. I started playing clarinet when I was in 4th grade and did some improvising and things like that. But I started writing just sort of in the middle of high school and just doing some simple duets, doing some arranging for friends. Maybe it was a saxophone quartet. And in those days, we had to track down real people, write out the parts and have them play it. There was no way to hear your stuff on the computer. There was no such thing as a computer. So the tools people have now are so much easier to use and hear things. We had to write stuff out and run after people and say, will you play this for me so I can hear it?
What did you grow up listening to? Or who did you? Listening to?
My first recollection, other than nursery rhymes and all that, was probably the Beatles. We were big Monkees fans back in the 60s. Loved the Monkees, Neil Diamond, Rolling Stones. My father played jazz piano, so I was listening to Benny Goodman and Count Basie, Duke Ellington, all of those things when I was in fourth, fifth grade, and just exposed to all the standards, Gershwin and Cole Porter and all those great writers. It was a mix of things that I listened to. Very little classical music growing up. One of the first albums I bought was Rite of Spring, which might have been a mistake because
Yikes.
to start wading into the classical legit pool that way, that's a big hefty piece to do. So I kind of backed off from classics after that. I remember liking a few Telemann pieces. Those in my record collection, probably the first things I bought on my own that was classical. But there wasn't a lot of classical music in the house. It was jazz, or it was pop rock or rock and roll.
Was your dad listening to Brubeck?
He was old school.
Basie.
He did not like bebop, could not stand that, did not understand it. He probably liked Brubeck. I don't remember him listening to it, but for him, it was stride piano, the old school, Teddy Wilson, playing the standards. And that's what he played. He had a repertoire. He had a little dance band when he was in college or in high school in the 40s. And that just went through the rest of his life. And I remember playing clarinet with him. He wanted me to start on clarinet because he liked Benny Goodman. I didn't know what I was going to play. So he said, pick that. I said, okay. And so we started playing duets that way.
And of course, being from SoCal, you had to listen to the Beach Boys.
Oh yeah. They were on all the time.
Yeah. Did those harmonies have an effect on you?
They could have subliminally. I tried to think back because I like a lot of modal harmonies, parallel major chords and things. And I can kind of trace it back to an old keyboard I had. You'd push a button and it would play certain major chords. It would play it for you. You probably had one.
One finger chord?
Yeah, it would just voice the whole chord for you. Here's a C major chord. Oh, here's an E flat major chord right after it. Ooh, here's an F chord. So you got these really strange, odd progressions that way. And I was listening, just messing around with that keyboard in 5th, 6th grade. And so that kind of got into my ear, I think. And I am really drawn to that type of harmonic progression. I think it sort of came from that.
I don't know if we answered this, but you touched on it a little bit. Somebody in the audience wants to know what made you want to start music?
Start teaching music?
I think they mean playing music.
Okay. Playing music would be my father, who just said, join in 4th grade. You pick an instrument. All my friends were doing that. I was in a school district, Arcadia School District. It had a very good music program, very strong. And it's just like everybody picked an instrument in 4th grade. So I just started in and just never stopped.
Huh. Publishers have always been on the forefront of technology with lately, the last 25 years, notational software and educational platforms for learning. Smart music, for instance, which Alfred is also involved with. Any idea what might be down the road in terms of post-COVID that might address new ways to learn in the online classroom environment? Because it looks like we're going to be here for a while.
Yeah. Well, just off the top of my head, I wish we could get some sort of a platform like this without a 2-second delay.
Absolutely.
So people could actually play together.
Yeah.
Because I know it's been a hassle. My daughter tries to give violin lessons online, and she tries to play duets. So she just says, ready, set, start the kid, and plays along, and they're off. So she just doesn't listen, and then afterwards said, did we end together? Okay, good. I don't know. You're not looking at Mr. Technology here.
No.
I do. I
know you're an IT person. I know she's sitting there somewhere off camera.
Oh yeah, Rose is off. My wife's off here in case anything malfunctions. But I don't know. I know composition. I know a lot of people who teach through composition one of my friends teaches music, and he has the students do a lot of improvising and a lot of composing and discovering things on their own that way. So I'm hoping things will go toward that direction too, where there's not always a right answer in front of you. I'm going to play everything I see on the page. Of course, in a group you should, but you should be also learning to improvise and just maybe making up your own tunes and trying things that are a little out there for you. So alternative string music came in, not long ago, where Alfred started publishing an alternative string series where they had jazz pieces for string orchestra. They had pop pieces, and there was actually a drum set part. Ooh, that was like some brand new thing. And that happened about 10 years ago. And so world music and alternative music is sort of a big thing. But all I can say is hats off to any teachers who are attempting to teach now and students who are attempting to learn now online. It is tough. Yeah. And I think I retired at the right moment.
Yeah, it is tough. And, I teach percussion, and, the whole thing about, and it's not just percussion, I mean, hand movement and know this or that, or if you're doing violins and strings, it's, that's so much, it's so, you don't even have to think about it in person.
Right.
But in this platform, which I'm happy to have, we're all happy to have this particular platform. It is tough, and I think the only way to get ahead with the technology is to make a bold statement that they'll never be able to get rid of the latency problem, the delay, and then. Right. 2 years from now, somebody say, "Well, look what they were saying, and we've got it." But yeah, they need something like that. And that would be
a game changer, I think, because people could actually play simultaneously. Play a duet with somebody without a lag or anything.
This isn't a question, but it's from the someone in the audience, and they're in an advanced elementary orchestra. And they played Dragon Hunter, and they just wanted to thank you and tell you that your music, I'm going to cry. They're telling you that your music has greatly impacted him or her. And since I played one of your compositions in my 6th grade class, and since then I have taken a particular fondness of your composition. So that's to you. There's a lot more, but I can't read that fast. So getting as much as I can. And as far as I could see, there's no question, but you should know, you have to know the influence. I know you're humble. I'm serious. You have to know the influence that you have on so many people. Also, I've seen you work with kids. We're talking about live. I've seen you work with students, and you're quite influential. And when we were talking with the Lins about having you write some music, I said, look. They didn't know who you were, obviously. And, right. And everyone in every orchestra room in the country knows who this person is. So they kind of started trusting Greg and I to get that done. I'm so happy that did happen. Something I know that you're involved in, I'd like to know a little bit more about it. Some time ago at your school, you started a program. The school was Oak Avenue Intermediate. You started a program called Giving Back. Can you talk to us about that?
Sure. I'm glad you brought it up because I love talking about giving back. I got to the point in my career where I had done all the festivals, I had traveled, we had done this and that, and I was thinking, what do I really want my students to be doing? And I wanted to empower them and let them know how powerful they are as musicians and the responsibility that they have as a musician to serve the community with their talent, not to just keep it to themselves. The program started with me doing a quick survey with my students. I said, write the answer to this question down. I'm going to take it home and look. The question started with, there are many reasons to play music. What is the number one reason that you play? And I'm wondering what everyone listening tonight would write for that. What is the number one reason you play music? There were 72 students in my orchestra that year. They all wrote down their answer, and I said, just write down the first thing that comes to mind. Don't overthink it. I took all the answers home. 65 out of the 72 mentioned themselves in their answer. And I knew they would, and that's fine, because what's our favorite topic? It's ourself, right? So they said, I play because it's fun. I play because I can let my emotions out. My parents want me to play. I'll get into a better college, whatever. It was about them. 7 people out of the 72 mentioned to somebody else. They mentioned, I play for the audience to make them happy. I play to get other people interested in music. They realized there was an audience at the other end of their instrument. So the very next day I came back, and I happened to have these actual signs. I came back with these 2 signs. I'm gonna get them so you can see them. And I'm here. These are the 2 signs I held up for my students. And I say, what do you guys think of these? And they thought, oh, I get it. This is about music, just I being in it. And this is about the orchestra or the band. This is the us in music. And I said, well, that's close, but can you go one more step? The us in music is not about the band or the orchestra. It's about you and the audience. The us in music is the audience and the performer, who we often forget about. The reason we're playing music is for somebody else. The perks are, oh, it makes me feel good, or I can relieve stress and I get into a good college or whatever. Those are the perks. But remember, we're here to serve the composer and to serve the music. You are Beethoven's voice. You are Vivaldi's voice if you're playing his music. He's dead. He has no way of speaking, only through you. And so it's a huge responsibility to play his music and do it as he wanted. So I held these up, and then we were off and running, and we started our program. The Giving Back program is all about interacting with your audience. We picked an audience. I picked special needs students, and we picked a special needs school, a therapeutic school called 5 Acres. We took our students to the school. We rehearsed this ahead of time, but we actually had a moment after we did our brief concert and we showed all the instruments and demonstrated them and talked about them. There was a time then where they actually went out into the audience, grabbed a buddy, brought them back to their seat and taught them their instrument for 5 minutes. And then we had a brief little piece called the D-string blues, where our buddies or our guests got to play the instrument just on open D and got to feel what it was like to perform. And then we gave them a certificate when this was all over. And this was the best thing for my students to watch how it enhanced their abilities to be community leaders. They became more empathetic, more confident. So I was selfish in starting the program because I wanted it for my students. But it also gave concerts for a lot of other people. We ended up going to the Junior Blind of America. We played for our special needs students at our school. We played for the kindergartners, the 2nd graders, et cetera, et cetera. And I'd like just to tell everybody, if you're interested at all in starting this program, there is a website. It's called givingbach.org. And you can go on that. It'll tell you everything you need to know about starting a Giving Back program at your school. By the way, I just visited that site. It says our site is down and under construction. Not true. You can go in and you can access anything on the site. Everything on there is copyright free. The D-string blues, the music to that, all the ideas, the logos you can use. And a lot of schools all over the country have picked that up. It's being done in many, many states now, hopefully in Australia, because I gave a Giving Back clinic to the teachers in Australia as well. And I'm always happy when I see the students carry it to the next level. They left me at Oak Avenue in 8th grade. They went on to the high school and started a Giving Back club. One student went on to her college. Who are the banana slugs? Santa Cruz, right?
Santa Cruz, yeah.
Yeah, I think she went to Santa Cruz and started Giving Back there. So the feelers just kept going out, and people kept this sort of idea of an interactive concert spreading throughout and through their lives. I kind of think that's the next wave in music, even with the Los Angeles Philharmonic or the San Francisco Symphony, involving the audience somehow. in your performances, much as we did with the piece written for Jenny that you conducted last year. That was a piece that involved the audience. So Giving Back, the mantra there is interactive concerts, and somehow find a way to break the fourth wall between you and your audience and get them involved, whether they're playing percussion, whether they're walking through the orchestra or band as you play. All of these ideas are online on the website. And
Give that address again.
it's Giving Back, all one word,
BACH.
BACH, right, .org, right, all lower caps, givingbach.org. And it's got everything you need, from explaining it to your administrators, to your parents, how to introduce it to your students, and then what a typical Giving Back concert might look like. And there's a format we followed, and I'm glad to say the very first concert we did, we made very few changes in the whole Giving Back format. The last Giving Back concert I did was almost identical to the first, in which pieces we played and when we went into the audience and how we shared the instruments, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something very near and dear to my heart. The school that I'm used to teach at, Oak Avenue, the teachers there, Jack Taylor and Kyle Smith, are keeping that program going. And they had scheduled many Giving Back concerts for this last spring, which of course had to be canceled. But before that, I know they did concerts for the local second graders and kindergartners, just bringing them into their room and showing them the instruments and interacting with them.
What is the way you fold? Do you fold it into your program, or is it a club? Is it how do you?
It could be a club. We folded it into the program. One thing as an instrumental teacher, I would always get a program ready, 6 tunes or whatever. Then we'd play it once and it was over. And this is one reason I like the Giving Back program, because we got all the repertoire set and ready to go. And then we shopped it around. We went around and we performed 5, 6, 7 times the same concert in different venues. So it became a very important part of our curriculum, and it still is. We had posters hanging up in the room about helping other people, pictures of students helping other students throughout the room. In fact, by the end, my last 4 years there, students had to go out on their own and do a Giving Back project, research where they're going to go, put together a chamber music group, rehearse, go there and present the concert, take pictures. You have to interact. And students went to their own daycares, to their nursery schools, veterans homes, all types of places, and documented these things that they did on their own. And I always told people, I don't know how it sounded because I didn't rehearse it, but that was not the point of the project. The point was just to go out there and do something with your talent to the community.
Did they do all the advertising and?
Yeah, they did all the legwork, calling the principal of the school, or their old daycare teacher, and say, can I come in, and play for your kids? And it was maybe 6 kids they played for. Didn't matter. They went out there and it planted the seed that they're going to use music for good that way. And I would challenge everybody listening tonight, how are you doing that? Is there a way that you could incorporate that into your life? And even on Zoom, are you visiting people? Are you playing for people? Are you playing for your grandmother's birthday? Or things like that can be very powerful.
Absolutely. And God bless you for doing that. That is great. You've also done work for band as well, not just orchestral. And can you speak to the differences of writing for a band outside of the instruments, writing for a band and writing for a full orchestra as opposed to a string orchestra? What do you do different? How'd you get attracted to?
Well, full orchestra has the most colors of anything. I think of it as an artist with a palette of different colors. If you're writing for string orchestra, it's very limited. You have 5 instruments that generally sound the same. And the one thing you can do different is pizzicato. Other than that, it's generally the same color. Now, when you start writing for band, you have so many different colors in your palette, 30 different colors. And you can use them to say things that you cannot do with string orchestra. So writing for band is much more adventurous that way, much more symphonic, or should I say cinematic that way. And it's also much more difficult. There are so many parts to do. And I tell students, if I'm writing a string orchestra piece, 5 parts and I'm done. Band, like I said, 25, 30 parts. First flute, second flute, piccolo, first oboe, second oboe, first clarinet, second clarinet, third clarinet, blah, blah, blah. It just goes on and on, all the percussion. So and you're trying to keep everybody busy with a good part, which is a sign of someone who's writing well for educational music. Everybody has something to do most of the time rather than count rests or play whole notes. So I like writing for groups like that, but it is a big chore. And it is the band market is very saturated. It's hard to get anything published for band because there are so many people writing, fewer writing for string orchestra, and even fewer for full orchestra, but publishers are not doing a lot of original full orchestra things at this point. It's because it costs a lot for them to print all the parts, get it recorded, advertise it, etc. And it is a business. We have to keep remembering that. They want to make money off the pieces, and you can't blame them. They do great things, but they're not going to take a lot of chances that way.
Yeah. And last question, people in the audience may not know, who records your pieces that the band directors hear and to make choices as to what they're going to be playing next season?
Alfred Publishing goes to Indianapolis at this point to a recording studio, and they hire professionals or very good college students to come in and perform and play. I've not been to a band recording session, but for the string recording sessions, they hire probably 12 people, small group. And I know there's 1 bass player, 2 cellists, probably 4 violas, 4 seconds, 4 firsts. So that might be a little more than I said, but they go into the studio and they record over a weekend, 3 days, about 60, 70 pieces. And these are really good sight readers.
Yeah.
You just blaze through the pieces, and it's all done on Pro Tools. So if there's a mistake, you can fix things very easily and drop in notes and adjust rhythms. So those are the pros. And a lot of times it's the best recording I'll get to hear of any piece, especially if it's a lower level. Watching the pros play Dragon Hunter is fun, especially when they get excited about a little piece like that.
How did they do it with stomping from...
Not so good sometimes. You have to explain what you want. Or if you're playing Rosin Eating Zombies and there's a scream, and somebody in the pros has to do the scream there. I remember them all debating who got to do it. They really got excited about a piece like that. So it's something they don't usually get to do.
Richard, I could do this all evening and talking to you. You're easy to talk to, but that's all the time we have for tonight. And I want to thank our guest, Richard Meyer, and thank you, the audience. A shout out to the folks in the background. Thank you to our engineer, Greg Meyer, tonight. Producers Jan Steinhoff and Lynn Foy-Kush, Pat Lee for announcing tonight, and all the hardworking student coordinators. I want to remind you that our next session is tomorrow night when Greg Conway talks with Hollywood studio musician and educator Jay Mason. These sessions are brought to you by the Jenny Lind Foundation, and if you enjoyed tonight's session, let us know at jennylindfoundation.org/contact-us. The Jenny Lind Foundation is a nonprofit 501c3. Please check out our website, jennylindfoundation.org, and search the music, safety, and donation links. Stick around for a fun Kahoot with student coordinator Jody. Thank you and good night.